Amazon Ring security cameras are now using facial recognition. They are calling it familiar faces. Whenever a person buys a cloud-based Amazon product, they are automatically brought into the Amazon Sidewalk network, which includes geospatial data that can track objects in the neighborhood without the need for its own network or GPS module. Amazon Ring security cameras have made a deal with Flock Safety, which will allow the police to more easily gain access to your home security cameras and your neighborhood Amazon Sidewalk network. Flock Safety's founder and CEO, Garrett Langley, whose name just coincidentally translates to Watchtower of the CIA, wants to rid the world of crime.
Crime. It's a complex problem that requires so many people to work together to solve it. And at Flock, it's our mission to eliminate it.
Flock was founded by Langley in 2017 and set their cameras up in a few test cities before the 2020 lockdown, during which setting up Flock cameras all over the nation was considered essential. By 2024, Flock's cameras have been installed across 42 states in over 4,000 cities. At least a third of their initial funding came from Palantir's co-founder Peter Thiel's Thiel Capital. Peter Thiel is also co-founder of Founders Fund, who also invested in Flock Safety. Initialized Capital, another investor, was founded by former Palantir employee Gary Tan. Flock Safety, Amazon Ring, and Palantir all working together to build the surveillance system that nobody asked for. Flock Safety cameras are being used by federal authorities, such as ICE. When this was discovered, the city of Evanston, Illinois deactivated and terminated their contract. But Flock Safety then reinstalled the cameras on their own dime, and the city is now finding it difficult to get rid of them. Starting in October of 2024, dflock.me provides a public map of automated license plate reader cameras, which are primarily made by Flock Safety. The project is open source, and data is voluntarily submitted by the public. dflock's goal is to promote transparency and provide knowledge about the surveillance infrastructure being quietly built around us. But Watchtower of the CIA, Garrett Langley, says that dflock is a terrorist organization.
Unfortunately, there's terroristic organizations like dflock, whose primary motivation is chaos. They are closer to Antifa than they are anything else.
Ben Jordan on YouTube has demonstrated how easily these Flock cameras are to hack into. There is practically no security, and they were able to connect to these cameras within seconds by simply pressing a button on the back in a specific sequence. They were able to take full control of these cameras.
First thing you're going to want to do is go ahead and press the button to turn on that police camera. Then press the button on the back a number of times I can't disclose in this video. There she is, the Flock wireless access point. Go on and connect. Send a command to enable ADB, connect, and now you can connect to the Flock Safety device and access its data. Or install whatever the hell you want on it.
The longest part actually is waiting for the hotspot to turn on, but realistically in about 5 seconds. And in fact, with the compute box, you don't need to hit the buttons because the USB-C ports are exposed, so you can just plug in a rubber ducky and then walk away.
A rubber ducky, sometimes referred to as a bad USB, is a USB drive that a computer or device detects as a USB keyboard and then executes scripts called payloads. One can make a device like this for as little as $5. This quite literally raises the limit of how one could use Flock Safety devices to their imagination. You can clone or decompile the apps. You could send the video stream data to a remote server. You could use it as a botnet client for malware. You could have it capture Wi-Fi handshake credentials and do middleman or honeypot attacks, or replace or modify captured footage or images.
Greg Reese reporting.
All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Diamond Report Live. Hope you guys are well out there and doing fine. And just thought we would take a look at the news again this week. Just getting all of my proverbial ducks in a row again here as I was skidding into home base as we were getting the show started tonight. So, yes, hello and welcome to the Diamond Report Live. This is your host, Doug Diamond. And lots to talk about tonight, as usual, 9:06 p.m. on 12/7/25, Pearl Harbor Day. So, yes, pretty interesting Reese report, huh? I like to start out with his reports just because he does such a good job. and I feel like his reports aren't quite making the rounds like they used to a year or two ago. So I like to try and showcase his work, and I know he's been spot on as far as a lot of the beast system revelations, even though he's not really calling it that necessarily. He is reporting on it, and I think that's good. So yes, the Trump administration are in process of setting us up nice and perfectly well in the beast system. Not a good thing. But, if you're keeping score at home, not a good thing. So anyway, let's take a look at the news. I've got some Hal Turner radio show articles pulled up, just a handful of them. And the first one I have here is clear signs U.S. prepared to begin strikes on Venezuela soon. And I know we keep saying this over and over again. And maybe it's never going to happen. Maybe it's going to happen within the next 48 hours. We have people saying there's a good chance that it will in the next day or so. So I don't know. I'm not sure what to believe on this. I think it's a bad sign in either way. What Hal's saying here is there are several clear signals suggesting that the U.S. may be preparing to launch strikes against Venezuela in the near future with the objective of removing Maduro and his government. This article is dated today. And I know Alex on InfoWars was saying most likely if it's going to happen anytime very soon, it probably will be in the next 48 hours. I don't know. We'll see. Yesterday, USS Gerald R. Ford turned out toward the sea and set sail away from St. Thomas in the Virgin Islands. There it goes here in the still shot here. Reports say that when the Gerald Ford departed, her AIS was off. The last ping from that automated identification signal, AIS, was when she arrived at the Virgin Islands on December 1st. First, yesterday, Erdogan, who currently maintains favorable ties with Trump, phoned Maduro and advised him to keep open lines of communications with the U.S. Second, after completing a resupply operation, the USS Gerald Ford aircraft carrier has returned to the southern Caribbean Sea. Third, Donald Trump reshared a Fox News article, as he does, claiming that a U.S. attack on Venezuela should serve as a warning to Vladimir Putin. So figure that one out. I don't think Putin's too afraid, do you? Finally, the Congress of Peru has approved a measure allowing U.S. military personnel to enter the country with war-grade weapons. Peru. Taken together, these developments indicate that American forces may soon initiate the first phase of military action, likely beginning with airstrikes against Venezuela. And then some people are saying that if airstrikes start against Venezuela, then that opens the door for Russia to step in to help them in such a way as the United States and the NATO countries have been helping Ukraine. And then, what they're saying as far as the U.S. and NATO, they're fighting Russia essentially through their proxy Ukraine. I think Russia could do the exact same thing against us. Doesn't mean they will, but they could. So anyway, that is the very first article here on Hal's website. A couple more from there. Russia cancels military agreements with Portugal, France, and Canada. Russia has terminated decades-old military cooperation agreements with Portugal, France, and Canada by decree published on Friday, according to Russian state media. The three agreements signed between 1989 and 2000 are no longer strategically relevant, Russian authorities said. The agreements were signed during a period of improved relations between Russia and the West following the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991. The Canada agreement came just weeks after the fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989, which effectively signaled the end of the Cold War, when Gorbachev attempted to mend bridges with Western nations. In 1994, the France agreement followed Russian President Yeltsin's broader push to integrate Russia into European security structures. Yeltsin had initially hoped Russia could join NATO or develop a special partnership with the alliance, signaling treaties with France, committing both countries to consult during crises and build a network of peace and solidarity in Europe. The 2000 Portugal agreement came during what researchers describe as the most fruitful period for Russia and Portugal relations with the 1990s, that was in the 1990s and the 2000s, when high-level visits were frequent despite Portugal's NATO membership. Since then, though, the Kremlin and Russian President Putin have shown an increasingly hostile posture towards NATO and the West. I wonder why. Claiming it is intentionally encroaching closer to Russia and blaming it for Moscow's war in Ukraine, which, of course, that's exactly what's going on. So anyway, that's the second one from Hal's site. And then, of course, as I mentioned, December 7th, 1941, a date that will live in infamy. 84 years ago today, Japan attacked Pearl Harbor, breaking the U.S. into World War II. He's got an embedded video here. I did not watch it, but I think it's just the official FDR speech on that. So we do have a special video about this whole notion that FDR knew ahead of time that Pearl Harbor was going to be attacked and some of the fallout from that. We'll save that video for a little bit later, though. That's going to play towards the end of the show. I do have it queued up and ready, so we will take a look at that. I've got some other specialty type videos tonight as well that we will get to at some point. Who knows when? But yeah, I hope you guys are strapped in. We've got 2 to 3 hours here tonight. We typically go closer to 3 hours. That's why we're starting an hour earlier than we used to. We used to start at 10 p.m. Central. Now it's 9 p.m. Central. I feel like that's better for everybody. It certainly is for me. Hope it is for you guys as well. So yeah, we'll come back to the Pearl Harbor thing. December 7th being an interesting day. And December 8th is too, and we'll get to that as well in just a minute. All right, so before we go too much further here, I wanted to mention this. This is something that strikes very close to home with the Diamond Report family. And this is not my family, but it is a very important person and family that has been around following the Diamond Report and commenting and making friends and taking part in the chat conversations over several years with the Diamond Report and husband and wife and beautiful family. And I wanted to mention, though, that we got some sad news earlier today. I just happened to be perusing Facebook, making some posts about the show tonight, just the normal links and stuff that I put up, and up popped a thing on my feed right in front of me that mentioned that Miss Crystal Verba has passed away suddenly. And I was just aghast because Crystal and Mark have been really good and wonderful supporters of the Diamond Report and been, very involved in the chats and also over in the private band group that we have for the Diamond Report. And it's really sad. I'm just really, really sad to hear that Crystal has passed away. A very young lady, actually. Here's what the GoFundMe says, and I would urge anyone who has a few extra dollars, even $5, $10, to help Mr. Mark here because he has his hands full. They have 6 kids. Crystal is a devoted wife and incredible mother to 6 beautiful children and a light in the lives of everyone who knew her. That morning, she was rushed by ambulance, morning of December 2nd, so just a few days ago, rushed by ambulance to a larger hospital after a local doctor discovered multiple blood clots in her lungs. Throughout the day, she stayed strong, texting and talking with her family, reassuring us that she was okay, and even talking about getting home soon to see her kids. Tragically, while awaiting surgery, Crystal passed away suddenly. Her family was on their way to see her when they received the heartbreaking news that she was gone. So this fundraiser is solely for Crystal's husband and their 6 children who range in age from 6 weeks to 8 years old. 6 kids from 6 weeks to 8 years old. They have always lived very modestly, and right now they are facing rent, utilities, groceries, and the day-to-day costs of keeping life together for 6 growing kids without their mom, and with their dad now caring for everything alone. 100% of every dollar donated here will go directly into the hands of Crystal's husband to help pay bills, put food on the table, and give their children some stability as they grieve the sudden loss of their mom. If you knew Crystal, you knew how fiercely she loved her family, and she certainly did. If you didn't know her, please consider helping carry that love forward by easing the financial weight on her husband and children during the hardest moment of their lives. And it says any amount, truly even $5 or $10 will make a real difference, which is what I was mentioning. And yes, I'm definitely going to be giving to this wonderful cause. And such is the season, as we say. And this is the time to help out Mr. Mark and their family. It's just amazing and wonderful people. And I'm so sad to hear this news. But Crystal is with Jesus Christ. There's absolutely no question. And was a wonderful lady. I was happy to call her a friend. And I know many of you guys in chat were as well, and we'll be remembering their family in your prayers. And I would certainly appreciate that, and I know Mr. Mark would too. So thank you guys. I just wanted to let you guys know that, and you guys can find this link. Actually, you know what? Let me just put this link in chat. I think I can do that here pretty easily. It won't show up for me in the Rumble chat, but I can post it here on the 2 YouTube channels that we're live streaming to at the moment. So let me do that because I want you guys to be able to access this page if you are if you're interested at all in donating to the cause. And of course, many of you will be. So yeah, hopefully that will go to both YouTube channels, Take It to the Lord in Prayer, as well as the Diamond Disc channel. GoFundMe is where it is. And I know they could certainly use the help. So yes, remembering Crystal. So keep her family in your prayers if you don't mind, even if you didn't know them. They're a wonderful group of people, and I'm very happy to call them friends. And absolutely, Miss Crystal is with Jesus Christ right now, taking care of her family from heaven. So anyway, I wanted to pass that along to you guys. Very sad news, and I knew you guys would want to know about that. All right. So, and we'll, as updates sort of come in, I did chat a little bit with Mark on Facebook earlier today. Not much more information, but him just saying basically he's going to have to give up his job in order to support his kids and take care of what they need. So hopefully I'll find out more information. I'll certainly impart that info to you guys as I find that information out myself. All right, let's take a look at the rest of the news items that I have pulled up here. Hopefully my browser will cooperate with me this week. Last week it wasn't really, so if you notice any strange pauses and things like that, it could be related to memory issues in my computer, but we do what we can, right? Need to know.news. So the big and somewhat silly and ridiculous news for the week is that the Department of Justice arrests a man for the J6 pipe bomb crime. Oh, wait a minute. I thought we already found out like several weeks ago who the pipe bomber was, and it wasn't a man. It was a woman who now works for the CIA. Remember that all that talk about using AI to analyze her gait as she walked and matching it 94%, I think it was, to this police type person that was former Capitol Police that moved over into the CIA. Well, just in time for dropping that whole story, they have now arrested someone else who is a black man, and Jake Tapper on CNN was calling him a white man in his 30s. Of course, he's not a white man. He is a black man, and they have arrested him. Who knows if he had anything to do with the pipe bomb episode, but he certainly was, in my opinion, not this person walking around that we've all seen the footage of. Anyway, let's get into this a little bit. DOJ arrests man for J6 pipe bomb crime shortly after independent investigator named a female Capitol Police officer, which is what we've mentioned multiple times. Here he is here. This is the guy that they have arrested, who is apparently on the spectrum, somewhat autistic. And many people guess that the official person to be arrested probably would be black, and some people were even saying autistic. So there's some definite hole-in-one type of guessing going on here. Virginia, the FBI arrested a black man identified as Brian Cole, 30 years old, in connection with planting pipe bombs at both the RNC and DNC headquarters near the Capitol the night before January 6, 2021 protest. Cole was reported to work for a bail bonds company and lives with his mother. CNN News anchor Jake Tapper misidentified Cole as being a white man. Critics are suspicious of the timing of the arrest, as Steve Baker, an investigative journalist with The Blaze, who we mentioned, 2-3 weeks ago, revealed that a female former Capitol Police officer matched the pipe bomber by 94% in a gait analysis. The FBI reviewed the matter, and after the woman produced a timestamp video of herself at home with puppies at the time the devices were placed ruled her out as a suspect. So you see, that's all she needed to do was have a video that was time-stamped while she's at home with her puppies, and happens to be at the same date and time. So who knows if that was fabricated or AI or what. That's not that hard to do, honestly. But yeah, they've let her off the hook and arrested this other guy. Reports indicate that investigators tracked down Brian Cole using cell phone data, license plate readers, and purchase records, isolating all the components used to make the bombs. Investigators still haven't confirmed his motive or if the timing is connected to what unfolded at the Capitol the very next day. I'm looking to see if it mentions some of the timing. Yes, some of the parts that were purchased like a full year before the bombs were found. So he must have been like traveling forward in time to find out what was going to happen, or he was a really good guesser that he might need some pipe bombs to blow things up on January 6th. Of course, nothing actually happened. They just found bombs. They knew right where to go, and they didn't call the bomb squad or anything. They just went over to, the police literally went over to where the bombs were in the bushes and looked around and stood around for a few minutes and walked away, and then went back a second time and looked around and stood around and then walked away again. So they weren't too worried about it. Tells me that the CIA, the Capitol Police, knew exactly what was going on. So I don't really think that the main story here is that Jake Tapper identified him as a white man. However, it is somewhat comical, just because we know that it's white people apparently that commit all the crimes. We talked about that last week, where they're literally taking Arab people and taking Latino people and labeling and black people and labeling them as white when they're being booked into the jails all over the country. They're labeling them as white, so it misidentifies them, and then now it's white crime because it's misidentified in the computer system. It's white crime everywhere. See? So they're doing that nationwide. And if you missed that, I talked about that at length last week. It says we previously reported that former FBI investigator Kyle Seraphin reported that the agency was investigating a person of interest but was pulled away after only 2 days of surveillance. The person of interest is an Air Force veteran whose Metro card was linked to the pipe bomber, Shawnee Kirchhoff. The former Capitol Police officer lived right next door to the Air Force veteran at the time of the incident. The FBI identified 186 phone numbers from geofence and cell tower dumps, but the agency refused to pursue investigation of 51 of these numbers because they belonged to law enforcement officers or persons on the exclusion list. In other words, it's okay when they do it. Here's the Seraphin reaction to the arrest of Brian Cole. Check my math. He says, criminal mastermind had evaded the FBI for 4+ years. Now we're talking about this guy right here. A criminal mastermind. He's evaded the FBI for 4+ years. He spaced out his component purchases over 15 months and used his own credit card. He had materials for 6 bombs, dropped 2, never did it again despite great success. No indication where he got the bomb part of the bomb, meaning the black powder. Caught on camera waving to law enforcement. I've seen that video. You may have too. Carried his own cell phone for the crime. He used his own phone during the commission of the crime. He drove his own car with his own license plate, showing into D.C., where there are dozens of license plate readers, and also is an autistic loner who lives in his mom's basement, and he is a black male who initially placed his bomb outside the Congressional Black Caucus Institute. Found a few weeks after the Blaze reporter makes multiple connections to the U.S. government and the USCP, meaning the Capitol Police. Has nothing to do with the FBI's early persons of interest who just happen to live next to the person the Blaze ID'd independently 4 years later, but does implicate a government conspiracy, has no connection to power, does not implicate a government conspiracy and has no connection to power, no obvious political reason, and explains nothing about why the officers didn't respond normally. The U.S. Capitol Police officers found the bomb at the DNC in under 12 minutes. Why the U.S. Capitol Police has been freaking out about the Blaze, the first ever puppies on video alibi, for a current CIA employee. Then he says, what did I miss? Because the neighbors say no. So Kyle Seraphin, once again, blowing a humongous hole in the entire story. And I think he's exactly right. So further information here on this. Hate to spend too much time on it, but it's absolutely, utterly ridiculous. Kash Patel and Pam Blondie should be ashamed of themselves for even trying this, but they are trying it. No, they are trying it, aren't they? And I thought it was funny, the press conference that they gave where Bondi's out there talking so forcefully, like, oh, they really did something good, and they're all patting each other on the back for a job well done and so forth. And what a joke these people are. Can we please get Pam Bondi fired? Can we please get Kash Patel and Dan Bongino fired? At the very least. Man, anyway, I digress. So that is on needtoknow.news. So is this one, Israeli forces accused of executing unarmed Palestinians after they surrendered. So once again, the Nation of Peace here is killing unarmed Palestinians because it's okay when they do it. Members of the Israeli border police have caught on video and are being accused of executing 2 unarmed Palestinian men after they surrendered in the West Bank town of Jenin. The IDF claims that the 2 men were terrorists. That's all they have to say. Who had attacked them earlier. The Palestinian authorities stated that the killing was an outright extrajudicial killing in blatant violation of international humanitarian law. Members of Israel's own media have criticized the incident, with Haaretz correspondent Nir Hassan saying there is no universe in which this is not murder. Yes, but there is a country, and it's called Israel. When it happens in Israel, we don't talk about it. Or if we do talk about it, we say that whoever they just murdered are terrorists, and then that makes it okay. That's all they have to do. Anyways, so there we go again. Yep, terrorists have to die. So if they label you a terrorist, you must die. That's all they have to do, because there's no questioning what they say. Anyway, yes. Israeli forces accused of executing unarmed Palestinians after they surrendered. All right, I thought this one was important too. The whole model is broken. Tech mafia wife admits that we were Klaus Schwab's useful idiots. Well, it's not just any tech mafia wife. It is Nicole Shanahan, the former running mate of RFK Jr. Nicole Shanahan, ex-wife of Google co-founder Sergey Brin, former running mate of RFK Jr., and someone who personally signed 9-figure philanthropy checks, just went full whistleblower on the entire Silicon Valley tech wife mafia and how they were used to fund bad policies around climate action, ESG, inclusion, and PPP, private partnerships. She said that the wives were duped and their money was conscripted through a network of NGO advisors, Hollywood, Davos, and their own companies. She said that the women are now realizing that the Great Reset is a terrible idea. Yeah, now they are. She admitted that many of the climate change issues are really geoengineering issues. I thought that was really important. Something I've been saying for a long time. Again, it's not climate change, it's climate changed, as in changed on purpose. So I thought that's good. She admitted that many climate change issues are really geoengineering issues. She said that social justice and climate change gets progressive women 100% of the time. Yeah, because they think they're saving the world for their kids or whatever. When someone who used to be the queen of elite progressive philanthropy says the entire system failed and may have been hijacked for something much darker, the world needs to hear it. Nicole Shanahan, ex-wife of Google co-founder Sergey Brin, former running mate of RFK Jr., and someone who personally signed 9-figure philanthropy checks, just went full whistleblower on the entire Silicon Valley tech wife mafia and how they were used. So I think I just said that. Anyway, that is the main idea here, and then there are a few outtakes, some clips of the video, and it is embedded here as an X post on needtoknow.news. So if you guys missed that, I don't think I retweeted that, but if you missed it, it is very interesting. So yes, she goes into some detail, and thank you. It's about time that you do, But at least she's just now, even though it is just now a little bit too late, but she's admitting that the whole Davos idea, the whole World Economic Forum Great Reset thing, that's a terrible idea. At least they're finally realizing that it actually is a bad thing, and I'm talking about it now. So maybe some people will listen. Who knows? All right, and then this one from Zero Hedge. Fourth Reich, Musk strikes back at EU tyrants after X fine. So this is something that's been being talked about in the last couple days, at least on X. Elon Musk is not taking the outrageous fine from Brussels bureaucrats lying down, lashing out at EU officialdom for taking on Nazi characteristics and oppressing their own citizens' best interests. Something we've been talking about at length on this show for quite a while is what's happening in the UK and in the EU, and how freedom of speech does not exist anymore over there. You certainly cannot talk about certain things. And Musk is on board because his company, X, is being persecuted here in the UK. Here was his post. It says, the tyrannical, unelected bureaucracy oppressing the people of Europe are in the second picture. So he's showing a picture here, side-by-side comparison. This is Europe, and this is the EU. So he's saying that the EU, the European Union, is actually just Brussels and Strasbourg. So I think he's right about that. And this is just Europe, not the EU. As Catherine Salgado reports for PJ Media, Musk also reshared a post about Irish teacher Enoch Burke, who was jailed for refusing to use transgender pronouns. And we've talked about him before. It's been quite a while, but I remember that story. And later replied to another user, so many politicians in Europe who are traitors to their own people, and Musk highlighted the fact that Meta has a verification program similar to X's, yet the EU hasn't onerously fined the more censorship-prone Meta. So they're leaving Meta alone and going after X. I wonder why. Not an accident, is it? Musk reposted and reiterated his previous explanation as why he bought X, then Twitter in the first place. I didn't do the Twitter purchase because I thought it was a great way to make money. I knew that there would be a zillion slings and arrows coming in my direction. It really felt like there was a civilizational danger that unless one of the major online platforms broke ranks, then because they're all just behaving in lockstep along with the legacy media, literally there was no place to actually get the truth. It was almost impossible. So everything was just getting censored. The power of the censorship apparatus was incredible, he said. The EU seems to be borrowing ideas from 20th century Nazi dictator Adolf you-know-who. So yes, pretty much. So yeah, that kind of covers it. But we've been talking about that. And again, who is it that heads up the EU? Who is it that heads up the UK? Who is it that heads up the World Economic Forum? What's his name? King Charles III. He is secretly behind the scenes, pulling the strings. He's the guy. And he is also the coming, very soon, I think, coming biblical Antichrist. He has the power. He's been in power since 1969, really. In the shadows, working, quietly, and doing his bidding, meaning doing Satan's bidding. Anyway, that is an interesting article. That one's on Zero Hedge. And then so is this one. I don't know if you guys heard about this, but my skin started to crawl a little bit when I heard about it. Barclays asks, the Netflix Warner Brothers deal, Holy Grail or Poisoned Chalice? I think it's probably the second thing, don't you? Senators, including Mike Lee, quickly flagged antitrust concerns after Netflix unveiled its $72 billion bid. Note the amount. $72 billion bid for Warner Brothers. That means the film and the television studios and HBO Max, signaling a high likelihood of congressional hearings in the near future. Hollywood insiders were sharply divided, while Wall Street analysts questioned the marriage of a digital disruptor with one of legacy media's most prominent studios. $72 billion bid. They had to bid $72 billion. Because 72 is what? 66 plus 6. 666. They had to do that, didn't they? Shortly after the Netflix Warner Brothers deal was announced, Hollywood quickly descended into full-blown panic mode. Already, filmmakers are coming out anonymously saying that the streaming giant, if the deal goes through, would hold a noose around the theatrical marketplace. Just the fact that creative, powerful storytellers are afraid of opposing this deal publicly should tell us something. The deal looks illegal and is likely to face a merger challenge, which I'm going to go into. It may ultimately even prompt a monopolization case against Netflix. Republican Senator Mike Lee raised the alarm with former Warner Brothers WBD, I'm not sure what the D is, CEO Jason Killer. How about that name? Jason Killer. It's probably Kyler, maybe? I don't know. Noting that if the deal went through, it would effectively reduce competition in Hollywood. I thought China already owned all of Hollywood, which they do own a big chunk of it. Beyond lawmakers and Hollywood insiders, Wall Street analysts commented on the deal, including ones at Barclays that framed a note for clients titled Poisoned Chalice or Holy Grail. A team of analysts led by this person, Kanan, somebody, questioned why Netflix is spending more than $80 billion for a legacy studio company it already disrupted, especially with only $2 to $3 billion in expected synergies and a slow integration due to existing Warner Brothers distribution and content licensing agreements. Sounds like they want to control it all, doesn't it? I wonder how many shares of Netflix Larry Ellison has. Just a thought. Because he's trying to buy most of the rest of the media. So it looks like it's going to be Larry Ellison versus Netflix. They're all one big happy family, aren't they? Anyway, I just wanted you guys to know about that. I didn't know if you'd heard about the Warner Brothers and Netflix possible merger. It says that that it could be looked at in Congress, basically may prompt a monopolization case against Netflix. I don't know. It might. Doesn't mean that it won't go through, though. So something to watch for. Interesting number, 72 billion, and I don't think that's an accident, do you? How the Obama-Netflix merger could end up owning America's kids' entertainment. So this one's bringing up Obama. This is article dated yesterday. Netflix is currently in the middle of one of the most historic media mergers in recent history, and while some might be celebrating, namely liberals, the truth is this potential merger poses a big problem for generations of children's entertainment. Let's break it down. Recent post on X, which was actually embedded here, from Benny, right here. Recent post on X, Benny Johnson flagged what he described as one of the most consequential media consolidations in American history. Netflix's reported interest in an $82 billion acquisition of Warner Brothers. Now saying 82, not 72. Whether or not the deal ultimately closes, the concerns he raises is definitely alarming. So, and you can imagine what those are, but this brings the Obamas into the whole thing. Netflix is already in partnership with the Obamas, or vice versa. The focus on LGBTQ messaging, race, and so on, and so on, and so on. So yes, as if it wasn't woke enough already, it will become even more so if Netflix is in charge of everything. So anyway, that one's on Cypher News. Cypher News. We'll link to all of these articles in the Substack post that I send out on Tuesday or Wednesday this week, so be watching for that. West Virginia Board of Education reinstates the school VAXX policy. West Virginia Board of Education says the state's education board said that it is reinstating its directive to county boards of education not to accept religious exemptions to compulsory VAXX laws. West Virginia Board of Education has reinstated their vaccine policy. So on Tuesday, they issued a stay of Raleigh's county circuit judge ruling last week, in which he allowed students whose parents refused the state's vax on religious grounds to attend school and participate in sports. So it's both school and sports that they're talking about here in the state of West Virginia. The state Supreme Court blocked this judge's ruling pending resolution of appeals in the case. State's Education Board said in a statement that it is reinstating its directive to county boards to not accept religious exemptions to compulsory vaccination laws. So there you go. They want to make sure those kids are jabbed. Every last one of them. So anyway, there's a little bit more information here on this article on the Liberty Beacon. Yeah, and then, let's see. The elite are forcing fertility rates down all over the globe. Decades of propaganda have successfully convinced women all over the planet to have fewer children. In addition, the global elite have poisoned our air, water, soil, and food, and we are constantly being blasted with dangerous levels of electromagnetic radiation. Which reminds me of today's post on geoengineeringwatch.org. We will get to that in just a little bit. Radiation is the key word there. This is an article on Liberty Beacon reposted here, but it's a Michael Snyder article, which, by the way, I had recommended people go to Michael Snyder's Substack. Many of you guys know who he is or maybe follow his work. And he recommended people back to go to follow my work as well on the Diamond Report. So that's been a good thing. So thank you to Mr. Michael Snyder out there. I thought that was pretty cool of him. Fertility rates have been rapidly declining all over the globe. If this trend continues, the global population will fall dramatically in the years ahead, even if we do not expect major wars, worldwide pandemics, nightmarish famines, and historic natural disasters. So that right there, I would agree with mostly, except the Muslims. They seem to not have so much of an issue, do they? I mean, yes, they're human. Yes, they're breathing the same air and using the same soil and water and so forth. But still, they don't seem to have a problem with the multiplying part, do they? Of course, this is exactly what many along the global elite have been seeking to achieve for a very long time. They kept warning us that the population bomb was an existential threat to humanity, and they have been working very hard to bring down birth rates. Sadly, their efforts have succeeded to a very large degree. In more than 50% of the nations on the entire planet, the total fertility rate is now below replacement level. So yes, that is why the UN has their document, very famously put it out years ago now, called Replacement Migration. We've talked about it and linked to it before on this show. So yeah, anyway, talking about the decline of the human population, but it's talking about mostly Western countries, which is exactly what they want. It says this is a crime against humanity. No kidding. But that's what they do. So anyway, not exactly new news, but I thought that was good that they're doing a report on it here on the Liberty Beacon. And then this one, Thanksgiving snow depth across America could be most in a decade. This is from a few days ago now, but I wanted to mention it because it's chemical ice nucleation. And one of the things that people get all caught up in, get trapped into here, is that they don't really see what's going on. They assume that because the globalists are talking about global warming or, just calling it climate change, that indeed they flip it and go the total opposite and say, well, the planet's completely fine, there's no issues. Well, I would advise you to check out geoengineeringwatch.org. We have been, hour by hour pretty much, posting things and going through exactly how the harm that geoengineering causes has been changing everything about the planet. And this whole issue of global warming and not being real and so forth, and that the snow is somehow natural after all of this, is a joke. Because none of this is true. It's yes, there is snow and record cold, but it's mostly just going to be in the U.S., especially the eastern half of the U.S. The most anomalously cool place in the entire world is the eastern half of the United States, because it's kept that way on purpose using geoengineering. So that's kind of where this article is going here, and I'm drawing conclusions about that. This is talking about, it says, while millions of Americans are splitting and stacking firewood, the irrelevant globalist elite have been in Brazil, warm this time of year, lecturing the world about global warming. Yeah, and cutting down lots of trees too, by the way. We talked about that. Thanksgiving week has arrived. This was, of course, a while back now. And the Federal Aviation Administration is bracing for the busiest travel period in 15 years. This year, tens of millions of Americans could face unusual weather, snow, and bitter cold blankets parts of the lower 8 as families gather to carve the turkey, which, that's true. I mean, it was cold, but it was a fake cold. It was not real. And that's the mistake here, I think, that some of these articles and writers are making, is that they're assuming that the cold is somehow real when it's all artificial. And that's the point that they're missing. They're missing the science part of it, the chemical ice nucleation aspect of it. They just assume that, oh, well, climate change isn't real because look how cold it is. No, that's not true. So anyway, there is more here on the Liberty Beacon, if you guys want to check that one out. And then Trump suggests he'll soon dump the income tax. Get rid of it, he says. Yeah, I think he was saying that on the campaign trail, if I remember right. And me personally, I say, yeah, bring it on, but I don't think he ever will. Do you? It's too much of a control mechanism for all of us. And this first line kind of says it all. President teases. Yeah, it's just a tease, exactly. Teases a future where Americans pocket 100% of their paychecks. I don't think that's ever going to happen. Or they'll institute it and they will at the same time declare a global reset and no one's money is worth anything anymore. And oh, by the way, here's your universal basic income. Take the mark of the beast and you can access it. They might do it that way, perhaps. President Trump signaled Tuesday that the federal income tax could soon be history. Believe it when I see it. Speaking to reporters after a cabinet meeting, Trump laid out a vision of economic freedom powered by massive tariff revenues from foreign nations, putting America first instead of bleeding hardworking citizens dry to fund globalist giveaways. That sounds fabulous. It sounds wonderful, but I don't think it's ever going to happen, especially given the fact that many of the things that he talked about in the campaign, he's either doing the opposite of, or just hasn't materialized in any way yet. Now, some of it has, but much of it has not. It says, with tariffs surging and billions pouring in from trade deals, Trump is paving the way for a tax revolution that could explode the economy overnight. I've yet to see that. I don't know about you. The president's declaration came during a press gaggle at the White House where he emphasized the unprecedented revenue streaming into the U.S. coffers thanks to his tough trade policies. And he's constantly patting himself on the back. Well, here's what he said. I believe that at some point in the not too distant future, he probably means after 2030, when the globalists have their reset. I think it will be probably before that, honestly. In the not too distant future, you won't even have income tax to pay, Trump stated plainly. He elaborated, because the money we're taking in is so great and it's so enormous, and you're not going to have an income tax to pay, whether you get rid of it or just keep it around for fun and have it really low, much lower than it is now, but you won't be paying income tax. Yes, and this is me holding my breath. I do think that if it was just up to him, he might get rid of the income tax, but I don't think that would ever be allowed to happen. It's too much of a control mechanism. That's why it was put in place to begin with, to control all of us. And it does. So anyways, he says, if he pulls this off, it'll be a massive win for freedom, unleashing prosperity like never before. So this is one of those things, it's one of those carrots that they dangle out there and try and get you to say, okay, well, we got to support Trump because look what he's going to do. And, in the meantime, he's very, very close to starting a brand new war with Venezuela. And he's bringing in the beast system, the technological beast system, left and right. And we're not supposed to notice that, though. We're supposed to focus on, he's maybe going to dump the income tax. Yes, well, I will believe that when I see it. Remember, I'm from the show me state. So, after Trump signs Genesis mission executive order, here come the humanoid robots. The technocrat accelerationists in Washington have an iron grip on Trump. First, the Genesis mission executive order, EO. just gave a blank check to the AI industry, and now we can expect a similar EO by January to accelerate the robotics industry, and in particular, humanoid robots. Arch technocrat billionaire and Secretary of Commerce Howard Lutnick is leading the charge just as Elon Musk prepares to make more than 1 million Optimus robots next year. What are they going to do with 1 million Optimus robots? Obviously, try and sell them and have you want to bring one into your home for whatever. I don't know. I don't think that's a good idea, do you? All right, and then this other Technocracy.news article, technocrat Sam Altman declares code red for ChatGPT. Sam Altman is beating his coders like slaves on a ship to row faster. They will all sink together in the end. OpenAI has minuscule income compared to Google and Meta, but Altman has overcommitted finances and underestimated his competition. As a venture capital guy, he can't personally code his way out of his dilemma. Even Trump's Genesis Mission EO, executive order, to financially backstop the entire industry will not help him at this point. So I don't know. I don't think ChatGPT is going anywhere personally, but that's what they're sort of alluding to on this article. Again, technocracy.news. Technocrat brain weapons that target perception, memory, and behavior. This is the state-of-the-art science of social engineering developed through technocracy. The writer of this article here, I think, is Patrick Wood. I have been warning about this for 20 years. Convergent science and Obama's BRAIN initiative, the brain research through advancing innovative neurotechnologies in 2013, were pitched as cures for disease. In reality, the military and spook organizations were lurking in the shadows to scoop up mind-altering technologies that could be used to control entire populations. Yes, and that's one thing they're very good at. So, anyway, those are the top 3 articles on technocracy.news. We will go back to this whole Genesis thing that was mentioned here, the Genesis mission. Got another paragraph to read about that when we get there. But, yes, it's very interesting, isn't it? Very strange. All right, then, Revolver article here, more about the pipe bomber. Mike Benz and Revolver News predicted the black pipe bomber 5 years ago. Says, for years, Americans were spoon-fed a very specific Netflix-style fictional story about January 6th. The villains were already cast. White Trump supporters. The conclusion was already written, insurrection. And anyone who noticed parts of the story didn't add up was called a terrorist and a traitor, and totally dismissed. Yeah. At least you weren't called an anti-Semite. I mean, that would be worse. The pipe bomber fit perfectly into that scripted storyline. He was the faceless, Trump-supporting menace constantly dangled in front of the public to keep the fear level cranked as high as humanly possible and to justify everything that followed. Like how the FBI insisted they couldn't crack the case, yet they somehow found endless time and resources to hunt down peaceful Trump supporters and ruin their lives over nothing. Yeah, literally nothing. Jailed people simply for walking through the Capitol. However, things started to change once Trump took back the White House and new leadership took over at the FBI. I disagree with this. Kash Patel and Dan Bongino pulled the Biden-era Keystone agents off the case, brought in fresh, unbiased agents, and told them to actually follow the evidence instead of protecting a flimsy left-wing narrative. I would say none of that's true, personally. But that's what this article is saying. Kash's team didn't uncover any new smoking gun evidence. There was no bombshell tip. Everything they needed was already sitting right there. All it took was a switcheroo inside the FBI, and boom, an arrest was made. So I guess this guy, whoever wrote this article, must believe that it really was this Brian Cole person. I do not think that's who it was. I still am back on the lady. If you watch the video of the supposed pipe bomber walking around, very effeminate. Now, I think they've already done some tests here with this guy's gait, and it was nothing like the person that was on film. So I personally don't think it was this guy. I think they have their patsy, don't you? Anyway, Revolver seems to think that they got the right guy this time. I don't think I buy that. So here's a Daily Mail article. January 6th pipe bomb suspect is an autistic, recluse computer nerd, and he is not a Trump supporter, family claims. I would tend to believe their family, wouldn't you? The 30-year-old Virginia man accused of planting a pipe bomb near the Capitol on the eve of January 6th is an autistic recluse and computer nerd who has no party affiliation, his grandmother told the Daily Mail on Friday. Ryan Cole confessed and told his FBI interrogators that he is a Trump supporter and holds anarchist views. So that fits really well into the mainstream media narrative that, of course, he's a Trump supporter, which his grandmother here is saying that he has no party affiliation and never votes. So it looks to me like this thing's a setup. Anyway, hate to spend too much time on this, but it's just ridiculous that the FBI expects we're to believe all this nonsense. And here's the dreaded pipe bomb with the 60-minute egg timer on it. I guess we're supposed to buy it all. Swallow the crap. That's what we're supposed to do. All right, and then I came across this one too. Thought I would mention it just because this is actually good news. To some degree, anyway. Jaguar exec, or as they say in the UK, my good friend Steve in England says Jaguar. Jaguar exec responsible for woke rebranding fired, and he was escorted out of the building. So Jaguar, wow. Another woke exec just bit the dust. This is what happens when a luxury car company stops making luxury cars and starts making TikTok craft projects for Brooklyn influencers. Jaguar's big, bold, insanely expensive rebrand, the one that replaced cars with androgynous runway mimes wandering around like they escaped from a Dior perfume commercial, just blew up in spectacular fashion. And by blew up, we mean that sales fell 97.5%. Ouch. Jerry McGovern, the architect of Jaguar's incomprehensible leap into the woke abyss, has been fired and escorted from the building. Sales of Jaguar have imploded. Only 49 vehicles were sold throughout the whole of Europe in April. Sad. The self-immolation of a great company. Yeah, they've completely destroyed Jaguar. This one guy did. And the woke setup here in the marketing. The rebrand flop makes Cracker Barrels look like a major success. And now, the man who led the charge, Chief Creative Officer Jerry McGovern, has been handed his pink slip and literally escorted out of the building. As in, sir, please don't let the door hit you, where the good Lord split you. This is also what happens when you tell the people who mocked your cruddy ad that they're bigots. Another lesson learned the hard way. It turns out the customer is always right, especially when they're trying to buy a car, not watch a Vogue parade. So here he is here, I guess. Jerry McGovern, the architect of Jaguar's 2024 woke ad and rebrand, caused a 97.5% sales collapse, has been fired and escorted from the building. Looking to see where he's already landed a new job, because he probably has. McGovern was a high-level exec and was the creative face of Jaguar and Land Rover's entire modern design identity. But his high-concept clown show sent sales soaring off a cliff and sparked a civil war inside the company. Now they're doing the corporate version of wiping fingerprints off the weapon and pretending they've never met the guy. Get woke, go broke, and get tossed out of the building by the scruff of your neck. So I think that's good news. They need to do more of that. Don't you think? So anyways, I think that's good news overall. Further information and some figures, facts and figures and stuff here on Jaguar, as I mentioned. That's a Revolver.news article. And then this one, Idaho governor warns of growing cow invasion from collapsing West Coast. But no, not those cows. Not the kinds with lots of flatulence. No, cow meaning California, Oregon, Washington. Cow. Idaho Governor Brad Little is raising awareness about the state's cow problem, writes Jason Mercer, Vice President of the Mountain States Policy Center. No, not that the state is dealing with an influx of bovine creatures, but rather residents that have escaped the deep blue enclaves of California, Oregon, and Washington. Cows. To make Idaho their new home. We're facing that in Tennessee as well, Nashville in particular, and we're also getting an influx of New Yorkers. So aren't we lucky? Little addressed this growing trend at the Associated Taxpayers of Idaho conference. Our tax climate is a significant draw for people across the nation. In fact, Idaho's real challenge today is the number of cows. Newcomers from California, Oregon, and Washington. We joke about it, but it reflects something real. Idaho has become a victim of our own success. Same thing in Nashville. As Mercer noted, this trend isn't showing any signs of reversing course, given that Washington just passed its largest tax increase in state history earlier this year, keeping Idaho red. As with all migration, Little noted that they're happy to welcome newcomers that are a benefit to society, but also emphasize the importance of maintaining the values that have made the gem state so attractive in the first place. Yeah, that's the thing. You get all these West Coasters who move to red states and then convert the red states to first purple and then to blue. I know Texas is suffering that in a big way as well, at least in certain areas of Texas. So anyway, I just thought that was really interesting and didn't know if you guys knew about the cow invasion that's happening. So keep an eye on it. And yes, they're probably responsible for geoengineering as well, because we all know that the cows are flying the planes. Here's another article here I've pulled up. This one's on Notus, notus.org. Fetterman, as in John Fetterman, leaving all 2028 doors open as progressives plot primary challenge. He has given the very distinct impression that he does not enjoy doing the job, one Pennsylvania political operative said. I think that it's because he is a little more conservative than they would like and doesn't always vote with the rest of the bloc. And therefore, the Democrats are saying he must not enjoy doing the job. So they're going to oust him. So that means that old Fetterman here must be doing something right. Progressives are already plotting a primary challenge to Senator John Fetterman when he's up for re-election in 2028. But whether Fetterman's around to be primaried at all is another question. The freshman senator seems to be leaving all doors open, insiders told Notus, which is this website. Re-election, retirement, and even a long shot run for president. Some think he's likely to leave the Senate, which they say he doesn't seem to enjoy much. I don't think he's running, one former Fetterman staffer told Notus. He didn't like the job, he missed home, and now is a pariah within the party. I think he wants no part of being in D.C. Perhaps he hates his own party. That's what I would say. Just my input there. When Notus asked Fetterman whether he'll run for re-election, he replied, "It's 2025. When Notus asked if he'd be interested in running for president, Fetterman replied, "It's 2025. So anyway, I just thought that was kind of interesting. They're saying, oh yeah, he's probably not going to run again. It's because they want to make sure he doesn't run again, because they don't like him voting against Democrats, which I think he's done a few times. All right, so that is a kind of an interesting one. That's a Notice article. And then this one from OANN, One America News. Thought I would mention this just because, it is the holiday season and these scams keep coming up, as they always do around this time of year and really just about any time anymore. FBI, new kidnapping scam employs AI-altered images to pressure victims into paying criminals. FBI issued a public service announcement warning about a new variation of a virtual kidnapping scams where criminals use AI to alter publicly available photos, often from social media, as fake proof of life evidence to extort ransoms from victims. In these schemes, scammers contact victims via text, claim to have abducted a loved one, demand immediate payment, often in cryptocurrency or gift cards, and send manipulated images or videos showing the supposed hostage in distress, sometimes with features like timed messaging, quote unquote. The PSA, public service announcement, announced on Friday, details how tech-savvy criminals are contacting victims through text and later demand ransom payments. So anyway, I just wanted you guys to know that this was happening if you didn't already. Criminal actors typically will contact their victims through text message, claiming they have kidnapped their loved one and demand a ransom be paid for their release, the FBI states on Friday. Oftentimes, the criminal actor will express significant claims of violence toward the loved one if the ransom is not paid immediately. The criminal actor will then send what appears to be a genuine photo or video of the victim's loved one, which upon close inspection often reveals inaccuracies when compared to confirmed photos of said loved one. That would make sense, because AI is certainly not perfect, and I've seen lots of videos where you can tell it's AI just right away. But, if you don't know what to look for, then obviously it can be very, very disturbing and very easily believable. So just watch out there. That's an OAN article. Pretty wild. Okay, so this is another one of those woke type of things that's happening, but you would think this would be in the UK, because it seems like the type of story you would hear about in the UK, but no, this happened in Portland, Oregon. Portland jury clears a black man of assault because the white man that he stabbed said the N-word. Let me read that again. Portland jury clears a black man of assault because the white man that he stabbed used the N-word. But the headline really doesn't do it justice. It doesn't say it all. It's not like the white man was walking around saying the N-word and then the black man got mad and stabbed him. That's kind of what you would assume happened. Racial slur, right? That's not what happened at all. Let me read just some of the top part of this, and then we'll talk a little bit about what actually happened. The black man was acquitted of stabbing a white man in Oregon after he claimed the attack was self-defense because the victim called him a racial slur. Gary Edwards, 43, was charged with second-degree assault for stabbing a man in Portland near a light rail stop, here again with the light rails, just like in North Carolina, on July 8th. So this was a while ago. However, he was found not guilty of the crime on October 31st when the jury learned that the victim was using racial slurs in the aftermath of the altercation. So never mind the fact that he just got stabbed, he was using a bad word. Edwards, the homeless person here, has had a previous assault conviction, admitted to knifing the victim, Gregory Howard Jr., but claimed it was in self-defense because the other man called him the N-word. Security cameras with no audio captured Edwards with a fixed blade knife in hand approaching Howard as he sat on a bench. Howard immediately jumped up and pushed Edwards. The two scuffled until Edwards stabbed Howard in the shoulder. Right here, you can see it. Edwards' defense attorney reportedly told the jury that his client was approaching Howard to see if he would trade his knife for cigarettes. So that's what they're saying here is a story. This homeless guy has a knife, he has it pulled out, and he wanders in towards this guy, and then of course he thinks he's going to get attacked. But this guy's defense attorney is saying he wants to trade the knife for cigarettes. Yeah. What other than racism could explain why Mr. Howard perceived hatred, animosity, and aggression from a complete stranger? Moments later, body cam footage from security officers captured Howard shouting a racist slur at Edwards after he'd been stabbed. So you see, there was no recording of him using any bad words prior to getting stabbed. In fact, he stabbed this guy, again, black on white crime. Of course, when he was arrested, he was probably labeled as white, but anyway, you get the idea. Black on white crime. He stabbed him first, and then this guy called him the N-word. And because he said the N-word, this guy gets off scot-free. Isn't that nice? That was not in the UK. That was in Portland, Oregon. Just so you know. Coming soon to a town near you. Just get ready. And before long, it won't just be the N-word we're talking about. It will be anti-Semitism or anything else. They're coming for the free speech, my friends. They're coming for your free speech and mine. All right, I wanted to mention this just because it is December 7th, which is, by my calculation, exactly one day before December 8th, which was the day John Lennon was assassinated. And 1980, if I remember right. This is a Substack that I like to follow just because I wasn't a huge Lennon fan, but I do find the assassination of John Lennon somewhat interesting. And there's lots of weird anomalies and lots of cover-up stuff, and looks to be, intelligence agency related, like they all are, meaning assassinations. And this guy does really good work. David Whalen, he's got a book out. John Lennon assassination book has finally been published. Let me look to see if it's called Mind Games. So that is his book, but I'm not really here promoting his book per se, because I haven't read it, but I do think it's really interesting. He does put out some really good information on his Substack, which is totally free. So if you wanted to follow along, if you're interested in that whole thing at all, as far as the assassination of John Lennon, I think David Whalen, a British guy, does really good work here. And there's an interesting connection here to John Denver, as in the singer John Denver. I didn't realize there was any connection, but he brings some interesting conclusions here into this particular article. And then this one also, Yoko Ono, David Geffen, and a Mystery Woman. So lots of interesting things here that he brings into the fold when researching, the supposed shooter here, Mark Chapman, and the murder of Mr. Lennon. So, that's coming up on December the 8th. So, anyways, I just wanted to mention that in case you guys are interested in it. And then we've got a few Gateway Pundit articles tonight. Let's see here. Breaking Clinton judge blocks prosecutors from accessing key evidence in criminal case against James Comey. Of course he did. Federal judge on Saturday blocked federal prosecutors from accessing key evidence against James Comey. Earlier this week, Comey's secret media mole sought to block the Justice Department from accessing his files as the Trump administration prepares to hit Comey with a new indictment. Grand jury in Eastern District of Virginia indicted Comey in September. He was indicted on 2 counts, false statements and obstruction of a congressional proceeding, which, by the way, they threw Steve Bannon in jail for, and he did some time on that. But nope, not for James Comey. It's okay when he does it. The charges are related to Comey's testimony to Senate investigators in September 2020 about whether he authorized leaks to the media. Newly released November 2016 emails reveal that Comey was guiding his media mole, Daniel Richman, and authorized leaks to the media. Comey knew his friend, Daniel Richman, was talking to the media, backing up claims in Lindsay Halligan's case against the former FBI director. This contradicts Comey's claim that he is being maliciously prosecuted. Yeah, that's what he's been trying to claim, is that Trump's just out to get him, when in fact it was the total opposite. He was out to get Trump. The feds seized material from Daniel Richman several years ago, and he asked a judge to block the DOJ from accessing his files. So, I don't know. It remains to be seen what happens here. The judge gave 3 reasons for siding with Richman and for granting a TRO, temporary restraining order. U.S. Attorney's Office for the District of Columbia has not yet entered an appearance to make representations on behalf of the government, and counsel for the government has not yet been identified, and so on. So it says the TRO remains in effect until December 12th or until dissolved by further order of the court. I was looking to see what the Clintons had to do with it. Judge Cameron Curry, a Clinton appointee, ruled that U.S. Attorney Lindsay Halligan's appointment violated the Appointments Clause of the Constitution. Yeah, I remember that. So that was a Clinton judge that did that. So again, they put the judges in power and make sure that they're the ones that get the cases and then rule against any sort of charges that come up. So that's exactly what's going on. People on the inside. So that's the Gateway Pundit article. Another one. Los Angeles County employees charged for $700,000 pandemic fraud scheme. The country is already reeling from the massive fraud scandal unfolding in Minneapolis, which we mentioned that in a video, I think, last week. Now it turns out that there is another huge fraud scandal coming to light in L.A. In this case, Los Angeles County employees were busted for $700,000 in fraud charges that stem from an unemployment scheme. Isn't it amazing how many people seem to have a talent for gaming the system out of massive piles of cash? Yeah. Clearly, though, it's small time if it's only 700,000, because the Somalis were in for billions over in Minnesota, and Tim Wall's helping them. 11 more LA County employees have been charged with felony grand theft for allegedly stealing unemployment benefits while working full-time during the COVID-19 pandemic, according to the LA County District Attorney's Office. So anyway, not exactly new information, I suppose, but yes, more craziness with pandemic fraud stuff. It just keeps coming out. So that's a Gateway Pundit article. This one too, Jake Tapper forced to apologize after identifying black pipe bomber suspect as a white man. Mentioned that earlier, but clearly he needs to get his glasses cleaned off or checked or something, because I don't think he's a white guy. Although, once he's booked in jail, he might be labeled as a white guy, because that's what they do. All right, I wanted to mention this. This guy right here is a NASCAR driver. I pulled that up because he's not pictured in this article, but he has recently passed away. It says NASCAR star Michael Annett died suddenly at the age of 39. This guy. 39. His cause of death was not immediately known. NASCAR is deeply saddened to learn of the passing of former NASCAR driver Michael Annett. He was a respected competitor whose determination, professionalism, and positive spirit were felt by everyone in the garage. Throughout his career, he represented our sport with integrity and the passion of a true racer. NASCAR extends its condolences to his family. But there's no news on what happened to him. And then, of course, some of the top comments are something about the jab. And who knows if that's the case, but it is interesting that yet again, another sports person died suddenly. And this was a NASCAR driver. So, pretty wild. Didn't know if you guys had heard about that one before, but that was pretty new article. All right, and then this one I think is important if it happens, but who knows if it will. Trump files for divorce from NATO over Ukraine. Let's hope that's true. But don't hold your breath. The new U.S. national security strategy signals a massive foreign policy shift. It remains to be seen if Washington is serious about it. Well, it is Trump we're talking about, so whatever you think there. It's one thing to produce a written national security strategy, but the real test is whether or not U.S. President Donald Trump is serious about implementing it. The key takeaways are the rhetorical de-escalation with China and putting the onus on Europe to keep Ukraine alive. So yes, the 2025 NSS, National Security Strategy of the U.S., released by the White House on December 4th, marks a potentially profound shift in U.S. foreign policy under Trump's second administration compared to the first term. This 33-page document, of course it's 33 pages, explicitly embraced an America First doctrine, rejecting global hegemony, it's a weird word, and ideological crusades in favor of pragmatic, transactional realism focused on protecting core national interests, homeland security, economic prosperity, and regional dominance in the Western Hemisphere. So yeah, we'll see where it goes. I don't know. The fact that it's a 33-page document tells me nobody's serious about it. So anyway, that's probably all you really need to know. But it's interesting that they're couching it that way, that Trump is filing for divorce from NATO. I don't think NATO will let him divorce them. Does that make sense? There's already been some talk, I know Hal Turner's reported on it, that if this were to happen, then the UK, the countries in the UK, will create a financial mess for the United States. And that they will hit us back hard with some sort of financial disaster that Trump is not expecting if he decides to defund the money going to NATO and therefore Ukraine. So I don't know. I don't really see him doing that, but that's what this article is about. If you guys want to check it out at all, it's on RT.com. It's the only one from that site that I pulled up. Netanyahu claims peace with the Palestinians and the Arab world are achievable without Palestinian state. I think he's been saying that for forever. So I'm not sure if this is really news. On the question of two states, now we have a different point of view. Obviously, because the purpose of a Palestinian state is to destroy the one and only Jewish state. They already had a state in Gaza. Did they? A de facto state. Yeah, but it was a prison. It was an open-air prison. Maybe that doesn't count. I don't know. De facto state, and it was used to try to destroy the one and only Jewish state. That would be because of the October 7th stand-down. We believe that there is a path to advance a broader peace with the Arab states and a path also to establish a workable peace with our Palestinian neighbors. But we are not going to create a state that will be committed to our destruction at our doorstep, Netanyahu said during a press conference with German Chancellor Merz. Doesn't sound to me like anything's going to change. But yeah, he's claiming peace with the Palestinians and the Arab world is possible. Peace, peace, wonderful peace. Yes. I don't think I buy it. Anyway, that's a Sputnik article. And then, let's see, 2 new articles this week from Information Liberation. Netanyahu, Hamas shoots Palestinian civilians just to make Israel look bad. So that's kind of what I was talking about earlier, except it's kind of a flip-flop. They're blaming Hamas for shooting Palestinians. The Gaza genocide is just one big misunderstanding, according to Bibi. Yeah. So they're blaming Hamas for shooting the civilians over there. And I guess Hamas is also dropping 2,000-pound bombs on apartment buildings in the Gaza Strip and so forth, too. Is that Hamas doing that with their fighters? I guess so. Zionists tout power, influence, and victimhood at Miriam Adelson's Israel Summit in New York. So that's the 2 new articles since last week, I guess, on Information Liberation. London is falling. The Liz Truss show. She was prime minister for about 5 minutes in there. She got booted when, I don't know if you guys even remember her. She was literally prime minister for just, I don't know, a few weeks or something. And she texted right after the Nord Stream bombing happened, where they blew up the Nord Stream pipeline. She texted somebody and said, good job, or it's done, or something like that. And it became known in the intelligence community that she wasn't trustworthy, apparently, because of her responding to that and basically saying by her response that she knew about it, and therefore that the UK knew about it, and that the Nord Stream pipeline was in fact messed up really badly, bombed by NATO allies, the U.S. or NATO or whoever it was that did it. So she got shown the door here pretty quickly. Who is them? Here's another. This is a Laura Logan article and video here, I guess. So there's several articles here on ForbiddenKnowledgeTV.net. That's pretty good. And then I wanted to mention this. This is the Genesis thing I was talking about earlier. Genesis mission. Now this is an article to Substack, and it says the federal receipt for automating the government. Genesis mission. The federal receipt for automating the government. Every major federal scientific data set, every national lab supercomputer, every classified research environment, all of it gets consolidated under one platform. Priority domains include nuclear energy, quantum computing, semiconductors, advanced manufacturing, and biotechnology. Then there's the gem buried in the order. Within 90 days, the Department of Energy must identify which systems and data can be made available to private partners and what data sharing agreements are needed. Translation: give us 3 months to figure out how to hand taxpayer-funded research data and HIPAA-protected data over to private companies. So that's an interesting little synopsis of the Genesis mission. And this is a link to Substack, which I think I mentioned last week. Pretty wild. Okay, let's see. Let's sort of scroll up the page here and see what else we can find. This is I'm on dailycrow.com if you want to pull up that site at any point. They have really good articles on here. Lots of stuff that I end up mentioning on this show. Amazon data center linked to a cluster of rare cancers. That's a Futurism article. And then, of course, we have says you can save yourself and those closest to you, but you must leave the country now. Trump reportedly said, offering safe passage to Maduro, his wife and son, only if he agrees to resign right away. But then it says, you are anti-Semites now. Prepare to be bombed. Reminds me of the Princess Bride. So yes, if Maduro is an anti-Semite, he should definitely prepare to die, because that'll do it right there. That's all you need. If he's an anti-Semite, they will take him out first thing, top priority, number one thing. I mean, Pam Bondi herself might go in and shoot him. I don't know. I mean, it's possible. Let's see here. What else we have? Dancing dictator Maduro vows Venezuela is ready to fight and snubs Trump's ultimatum. So we'll see where that goes. I think that one's probably coming to a head pretty soon. Patrick Byrne, I mentioned him earlier, and in an interview I recently saw, said that he felt like, and he has a lot of deep connections there in the whole Venezuela thing, he felt like that whole thing will be wrapped up before the end of the year, by Christmas, I think he said. So I don't know. I'm not sure if I buy that, but that's what he's saying. You know, and the bombing of Iran, when Trump decided to do that, was over very soon as well. Not saying it's a good thing. I'm just saying, you know, at least it wasn't a long, drawn-out process. What else do we have here? Bloomington, Minnesota. Mohammed raped a woman twice, convicted, served 0 prison time. He's a good kid. Some might call him a scholar, but he just has a little rape problem. Poor guy. Don't you feel sorry for him? He has a little rape problem. Yeah. I know. That's where we are. So this one's interesting because it's about 11/11, something I talk about often. The 11/11 sign, another video here, the day the earth rang like a bell, connected to Hanukkah 2025. This is fascinating. On the winter solstice and 77 years, 7 months, and 7 days from Israel. Then he says, difference between May 14th, 1948 and December 21st, 2025 is 77 years, 7 months, and 7 days. Weird. So yeah, May 14th, 1948 is when Israel became a nation, of course. 77 years, 7 months, and 7 days. You think something will happen on December 21st? I don't know. But that's what this video is talking about. The 11/11 sign. I have not watched that video. I just came across that link and thought I would mention it. Is President Trump really so concerned about the flow of drugs poisoning Americans when he just pardoned a notorious drug trafficker and warp speeds harmful pharmaceuticals? Words are one thing, actions are another. Let's examine the Trump record on the poisonous drugs harming Americans, both legal and illegal. It starts with his chief of staff, Susie Wiles. And then they mention here, Wiles appears twice in the King James Version, and both references are pretty telling. Wiles means beguiling and also the devil. So Susie Wiles, beguiling and also the devil. I don't know about the beguiling part, but the devil part might be more accurate. I don't know. Just a guess. Trump commutes 7-year prison sentence of former private equity CEO who is a Jew named Gentile. Gentile was sentenced in May. That's literally the person's name. Gentile was sentenced in May to 7 years in prison on wire and security fraud charges. But he commuted the Jew named Gentile. Okay. Enoch Burke, mentioned him earlier, will remain in jail for Christmas, judge says. Jailed teacher claimed to present Oxford Dictionary meaning of baleful, B-A-L-E-F-U-L, and stalking in argument with the judge. We must stop white men from speech that is in line with nature and reason throughout history. Meanwhile, let 60 IQ invaders rape and murder without consequence. That's exactly what's happening in the UK. And that's where this person is. He's Enoch Burke, I think, is in Ireland. It's time to dismantle the Indian tech cartel. Lots of talk about that. How most of the Indians that are coming over on the H-1B visas are not just like randomly picked from anywhere in India. No, it's like a mafia. They pick all the same people from the same exact, not really family, but same exact area. That's the people that get those visas. So it's weird. Everything's a total bureaucracy, I guess. This one's interesting, I thought, too. It's a video. We have 900 days left. According to this, AI is advancing at a rate we've never seen before. From sex robots and chatbots helping with therapy to AI rapidly transforming industries. We're already living in an AI-powered world. And in 5 to 10 years, governments could be guided and run by AIs. And then the comment here says, whenever they give you a time frame related to tech, divide it by 2.5. And that number is usually closer to reality. They are incapable of factoring the exponential growth curve of this. Kurzweil, as in Ray Kurzweil, predicted 10 years ago that 2045 AI would surpass human intelligence. I'd say we are grossly ahead of schedule. I think so too. So, more discussion here from Candace about the Egyptian planes. And I know she's been getting a lot of, I guess you could say, negative press on this just because people aren't really listening to what she's saying. But she's proving her point. She simply wants to discover who killed her friend Charlie Kirk. That's it. That's where it begins. That's where it ends. There's no other, ulterior motive. And this link here is to one of her videos, I guess. Shocking revelation about the Egyptian planes, episode 274. And then posted here, it says, I remember a jet that happened to explode over Egypt back in 2015, 9/10/10. So September 10th, 2010, which was before September 10th, meaning this year. That was October 31st. In 1999, on October 31st, an Egyptian plane crashed departing LA. So that's weird. The difference between October 31st, 2015 and September 10th, 2025 is 9 years, 10 months, 10 days. January 6th, riot pipe bomb suspect Brian Cole is pictured after FBI swooped in on his $700,000 Virginia home. There was a total lack of movement, Bondi said. She emphasized that Cole's arrest came after no new tip and no new witnesses were found, and said the evidence used to snare the suspect was collecting dust. Yeah, she was very, very forceful in her press conference that they gave. Again, patting each other on the back, her and Kash Patel. What a joke they are. This one, after AI push, Trump administration is now looking to robots. So that'll be interesting. I've heard several people and read, I think, a couple times tonight that the next Trump administration push will be robotics. So we'll see if that actually comes true. This is a article on Politico, actually. It says, I was a little ahead of schedule, but the bide in our time pause was unexpected. So AI push and then robots are next. We'll see. And then poor Franklin the Turtle trying Somali food. That's what happens. And then you can see this guy here. He also tries Somali food and pretends to like it. So the story here is a Twitchy article, twitchy.com. Jacob Fry, or Frey, I'm not sure how you say his name. He's gonna spew. Watch Mayor Jacob Frey's face as he devours a Somali meal in defiance of Trump. So this shows you how much he hates Trump. he's going to eat this big, heaping pile of garbage. Somali food. This guy's laughing it up. He thinks it's funny. Anyway, yeah, here's the back and forth thing here. So we have Jake Tapper and then the white guy. Yep, white man. This guy was self-defense. This guy was killed by cops. This guy was a gentle giant. None of which are exactly true. Trump plans to announce a Gaza government and a board of peace by Christmas. Okay. I got to see that one. This is an Axios, so mainstream media piece here. A board of peace, which will be anything but, won't it? I guess you have to be a subscriber. President Trump plans to announce before Christmas that the Gaza peace process is moving into its second phase. And what was the first phase? Stopping the killing, because they ain't done that yet, have they? Anyways, ceasefire in Gaza, which of course it's only one-sided. The only people that can't fire are the people that are being victimized mostly, which would be the Palestinians. Anyways, and I'm not on their side either. I don't care. I just don't want to be involved in any of it. So yes, the Board of Peace coming very soon. Pretty funny. And ridiculous. Catherine Austin Fitts, Currency Wars. Full interview here. So that's got to be a good one. She puts out some really, really good information. She's right on top of the the rollout of the beast system architecture. And it is everywhere. So she's doing a really good job of staying on top of that, I think. Elon Musk's Grok AI is doxing home addresses of everyday people. And then out of 33 names of non-public figures we fed into Grok, a total of 10 queries immediately returned correct and current residential addresses for the name provided. Futurism article. How about that? 33 names. Wasn't 34, not 32. 33 names of non-public figures fed into Grok. Total of 10 queries immediately returned correct and current residential addresses for the name provided. So if you guys happen to be on X, you might want to check that for yourself. I remember this story from quite a few months ago now. Raped to death on a church sidewalk, Nashville freed her Somali predator, Mohammed. Remember that? Mohammed was the guy's name. 16 times before he struck again. So that happened down near downtown Nashville. Somali predator Mohammed. He was freed 16 times before he raped her to death on a church sidewalk. Yeah, I remember. The Balkanization of America 2025 status report. Someone with a Star Wars cantina name made a report using Grok. It sounds official, but not entirely wrong. But it also seems to be stating the obvious 5 different ways. So that's a Google Drive document, actually, is what that is. And then what else we have? Tennessee grandfather and his 3-month-old grandkid mauled to death by 7 pit bulls at home. So Tennessee grandfather and his 3-month-old grandkid, wow, killed by 7 dogs. That is insane. Radiation fog is the new 90-second alert that we put out tonight on geoengineeringwatch.org. Thanksgiving Day and the day following was the biggest chemtrail barrage I had seen. Again, this is from the main writer here on Daily Crow. The biggest chemtrail barrage I had seen. Days later, my daughter pointed out the weird fog. Then it happened for the 4th time. The girls got sick, followed by me a few days later. Head cold, sore throat, and fever. I'm not real sure where he lives, but yeah, the 90-second alert that we put out earlier today on GeoWatch, we'll get to that in a minute, but I think that was primarily out in California. But yeah, there's fog in a lot of different places, apparently, at least lately. All right, and then let's look at the top most recent articles here on the Wise Wolf Substack. Pennywise isn't fiction. Stephen King's It proves what the Bible says about fallen angels and Nephilim. Babylon on Parade, Clockwork Horror Show, and the greatest conspiracy in modern religious history, the miracle of the sun at Fatima. That's actually an interesting story. I actually mixed a film several years ago. It was the first film I worked on for L.A. Marzulli. L.A. Marzulli did a film about the, quote, miracle of the sun at Fatima in Portugal. And it's a really interesting story. He's got a really good video or two about that, if I remember right. And, I was honored to work with L.A. on that. And I mixed audio for that film. I think that was probably about 2021 or 2. It's been a little while now. American Evil, the cannibal giants nobody wants to talk about. Speaking of L.A. Marzulli, Steve Quayle, and the Native American legends. So that's some of the top most recent Wise Wolf Substack posts. Always a good one. Over a dozen pro-life advocates arrested at Memphis Planned Parenthood. A dozen pro-life advocates. Well, you can't be that. Not and stay out of jail anyway. Netflix buys Warner Brothers for nearly $83 billion. I thought it was $72 billion. Turning Point USA to offer rebuttal of Candace Owens on the show. Yeah, that's becoming quite the story as well. TP USA, in my opinion, is turning into Toilet Paper USA. Because the people that run that outfit are covering something up, if you ask me. And they might be using toilet paper to cover things up. I don't know. But, they've offered to have a public rebuttal here of what Candace has claimed on her show. But, they're moving the goalposts. They're literally moving the target here and saying, oh, well, we're going to have a sit down, and she's allowed to come in and voice her views, but she has to come in person, and they're giving all of these different, stipulations on, yes, we're going to talk to her, but she has to do this and she has to do that. And she's like, well, just send me a link. We can do it over the internet. We can have a live stream. It doesn't have to be in person. And so that's sort of been her position on this whole thing. And I don't know. Again, they're moving the goalposts. Not too sure what to think about that, other than I don't think Mr. Charlie Kirk would be too happy with his organization right now. Trump regime implements next phase of Real ID enforcement, slapping non-compliant air travelers with a $45 fee. Yeah, I heard about this. This is something that I know they're going to start doing at the Nashville airport, because we were contemplating doing some traveling coming up, and I'm going to be hit with this, obviously, because I don't have a Real ID driver's license. But the point is, it's like, you guys issued the ID that you're going to fine me for not having a valid ID, but it's your ID. You issued it. Why should I pay a fee when your ID you called valid all this time is now suddenly not valid? Doesn't make sense. But I do have a passport, so I guess that's good. And I'm not sure that we're going to be doing any traveling real soon, but I do think that there's a possibility. That's why I was looking at this. Trump regime implements next phase of Real ID enforcement, slapping non-compliant air travelers with a $45 fee and requiring them to submit biometric data. No thanks. Anyway, that is on Leo Hohmann's Substack. Microplastics, the silent brain invader, fueling neurodegenerative diseases. Yeah, and that's a really huge version of microplastics. They're obviously way smaller than this. Nanoparticles, nanoplastics, and so forth. Anyway, some interesting articles over on Natural News. Wine Press Substack, great replacement. Trump administration turns to humanoid robots. Again with the robots. To bring critical production back to the United States. Yeah, I guess because people can't do it anymore, so it has to be put in the trust of robots. According to Trump and company. Code as law. CEO of AI Biometric Digital ID Network firm says blockchain will be used for age verification. Yeah. something that we've been talking about off and on. So there are some interesting things on the Wine Press Substack. Russia stands shoulder to shoulder with Venezuela. Blasts U.S. war footing. Russian Deputy Foreign Minister criticized Washington's desire to establish unconditional dominance in the region. Russia on Sunday issued new statements voicing deep concern over the U.S. force posture in the southern Caribbean, warning against any possible slide toward direct military action. Unfortunately, it's looking like that may be the case. I guess we'll know in the next few days. Most likely. 84 years later, FDR's Pearl Harbor stand down exposed. So we've got a video on this. We'll finish the show with that for tonight in just a little bit. But I wanted to mention it just because it seemed like it was something worthwhile. And it says on the 84th anniversary of the Pearl Harbor attack, this 2023 report by Brian Wilson breaks down how FDR's administration provoked Japan into attacking Pearl Harbor in order to bring the United States into World War II. The report is based on the work of Robert Stinnett's acclaimed book, Day of Deceit, The Truth About FDR and Pearl Harbor. So anyway, that'll be interesting. We'll watch that at the end of the show. And I watched some other videos when I was researching stuff yesterday, just trying to find some good videos or clips or something that showed that FDR in fact did in fact know that and let the Japanese attack Pearl Harbor. And I was not able to really find anything conclusive on that. There were people talking about it, of course. But most of the videos I found said that, yes, that was discussed, and yes, FDR was saying something to the effect of, yes, we'll most likely get attacked, but not necessarily with those specifics as far as the day, the time, and where. So, but that we would probably be attacked by Japan, but not necessarily know where. And to me, it's like, well, it seems obvious that was the westernmost place that they could attack, so Pearl Harbor would certainly be the place to watch out for. And I guess they ran tests. They ran tests of possible attacks on Pearl Harbor, and that day determined that for whatever reason that they saw planes coming in and decided that it was just friendly, whatever it was, B-17s or something, and decided not to put any planes in the sky that day, and then the Japanese came in and attacked. So I don't know. I tend to think that it is FDR we're talking about here, and I don't personally like a lot of what he did. I think that he probably did know a lot of details, but apparently there's not really any good documentation to point to the fact that he did know for sure that it was going to happen. So we'll see what this video says. I haven't seen it yet, but it's based on this guy's book, Day of Deceit, The Truth About FDR and Pearl Harbor. So I guess we'll find out. But one thing I saw did state that we would have been pulled into World War II anyway, even if Pearl Harbor wouldn't have happened, because of what happened in the Philippines right about the same time. Because Japan invaded the Philippines as well, right about the same time, and that, because that was American base and American military involved in that too, we would have gotten pulled into World War II just strictly because of that. Forget the Pearl Harbor thing. And then Pearl Harbor happened, and thousands of U.S. military men were killed, and then that changed history essentially. But yeah, it was pretty interesting videos that I found yesterday when I was searching around. But I did find this one and thought that you guys might like to see what is said here. And this guy, Brian Wilson, does some really good work. So we'll check that out here in a little bit. And then this is his channel on band.video, Red Pill TV. And then I've got a few, I guess 3 articles here from Not the Bee. This one's wild. I would say it's a doom break, but this one's not really. This one isn't really. Watch security camera security camera captures California man driving into a coffee shop at 100 miles per hour. The dude did not even tap the brake pedal. So I don't really have the sound queued up. So I've got it muted, but you can see it go flying past here. So let's just watch this, and I'll expand the view here so you can see it a little bit better. But you can see it's a 20 mile per hour zone here. So here's the video. Just goes flying past and smashing into this building right here, right? Okay. So, wow. The driver was taken to the hospital in serious but stable condition. He survived. He was 90 years old. Surveillance camera catches a 90-year-old man driving around 70 to 100 miles per hour, crashing into a coffee shop in Los Gatos, California, after 9 p.m. on Thanksgiving. This was a 20 mile per hour zone. Everything in the shop was destroyed. So, yeah, needless to say, everything was destroyed. He went flying into the coffee shop, and you can see. Again, let's expand this out and see if we can play this here. You can see what a mess it is here. Again, I don't really have the sound pipe through the stream here, so my apologies on that. But you can see the car, and it was totally demolished, but the compartment where he wasn't too darn bad. And it says it's pretty amazing that the soda fountain was still standing. Here's the soda fountain. Amazingly, the guy managed to survive. 90 years old, and he smashes into this building at almost 100 miles per hour, and he lives. He lives. So, I'm trying to see what he was driving. I want to say it was a Volvo. It says, police say the driver was extricated from the vehicle by firefighters. He was then transported to a hospital in serious but stable condition. Alcohol may have been a factor. The owner of the coffee shop, meanwhile, was simply happy that there were no other injuries. Says that we are normally open with 100 people in that space. There was not one person on the street or inside the building at the time it happened. We are just very grateful that no one was injured. Well, the guy that did it was injured, but that is crazy. So you could just see him just go flying, and he didn't even tap the brake, like this said. Imagine how freaking grateful you got to be if you're the driver who cleared that spot just 2 seconds to spare. Like if he'd have hit that car that went right through there, that car right there, they would have instantly been dead. Just instantly. 100 miles per hour. That is crazy. Anyway, that's not to be. Then there's this one. Chinese inventor creates army of flying sword drones that he can control with hand gestures. Is this awesome, or should we be very worried? Chinese hobbyist and inventors going viral after sharing clips of his latest invention, an army of flying swords. Wow. So I guess you want to see the army of flying swords, right? Okay, hang on one sec. I don't have any sound queued up for it, but we will we'll play the clip at least, and again we'll expand it out. And the swords are bigger than you think, maybe. They're on the ground here around him. You can see that. There we go. So you can see him flying here. That is wild. I'm not really sure what the hand gestures do. I mean, that controls it somehow, but they're using them to burst balloons. Then there's a giant version, I guess, that he's using to stand on and hover around on. Weird. A few clips of the drones, which can be controlled by the operator's hand motions, have been shared around the internet. The drones are designed to imitate the flying sword trope often found in anime and kung fu movies. So there you go. I didn't know that. I'm not really an anime guy, but pretty wild, yeah. Maybe we should be concerned. This is too much power for one person. Don't worry, America, we still have this. Yeah, but it's in the control of the American military and, unfortunately, the globalist power structure, so that's not good either. Anyway, that is not the B. And then one more. I thought this was interesting because this is something I remember saying a long time ago, and lo and behold, I'm sure glad that the adults are back in charge. Our nation's health officials have decided to stop playing children's games and pretending that boys can be girls, and you can see that in the halls of the Department of Health and Human Services. It says NPR got the exclusive scoop on this one. As you walk down a particular hallway on the 7th floor of the Humphrey Building in D.C., you'll find a line of photographic portraits of all the people from years past who have led the public health corps at the Federal Department of Health and Human Services. Only one of these portraits is of a transgender person, Admiral Rachel Levine, who served for 4 years as President Biden, fake President Biden's, Assistant Secretary for Health. Levine's official portrait was recently altered. A spokesperson for HHS confirmed to NPR. A digital photograph of the portrait in the hallway obtained by NPR shows that Levine's previous name is now typed below the portrait under the glass of the frame. Richard. That is the previous name that NPR dare not even mention for fear of dead naming and causing trauma to the whole transgender community. In other words, exposing their lies. We wouldn't want that. And our formerly taxpayer-funded news organization thinks that this is some sort of great scandal that the Trump HHS is recognizing that Admiral Rachel Levine was a man, and he was born named Richard. Unless the nameplate shortened his name to Dick Levine, because that would be 1,000 times funnier. That is true. Levine told NPR that it was an honor to serve the American people as Assistant Secretary of Health, and I'm not going to comment on this type of petty action. So here he is crying. Yes, it's petty to call a man by his birth name instead of pretending he's a lady, but forcing the entire country to respect your pronouns and not dead name you isn't petty at all. The response from HHS is really the best part of the story. NPR asked HHS who made the change and why. In response, HHS spokesperson Andrew Nixon wrote, "Our priority is ensuring that the information presented internally and externally by the HHS reflects gold standard science. We remain committed to reversing harmful policies enacted by Levine and ensuring that biological reality guides our approach as public health." You got a problem with official policy of the Department of Health of the United States, NPR? It sounds like somebody isn't trusting the science. Of course, NPR goes on to show that there's a lot of swamp draining left to do. Yeah. Asking Bobby Jr. to get rid of the person, I guess. Anyway. Pretty funny. His name is Richard, and they have fixed it, apparently, on the portrait in the gallery there. Pretty wild. And not unfunny. All right, so yeah, radiation fog, 90-second alert. GeoWatch, we put this out earlier today. Mysterious 400-mile stretch of radiation fog blankets 13 million Americans. You can see it here a little bit in the thumbnail of the video, right over the top of the valley here in California. Thick fog to blanket California's I-5 corridor indefinitely. This is not nature, it's man playing God with the weather. The snow, fog, and air are completely contaminated with climate engineering ice nucleating elements. The geoengineers are completely derailing the climate system from every conceivable direction. This includes stratifying atmospheric layers. While some regions of the country are constantly being hit with hurricane-force straight-line winds, states like California are enduring completely stagnant air patterns that cause a chemically cooled, contaminated surface layer of freakishly freezing fog to linger indefinitely. How long can you hold your breath? Mr. Dane asks, and I think that's a very legitimate question. So that 90-second video is embedded here on this most recent post on GeoWatch, geowatch.com or geoengineeringwatch.org. And then yesterday's post was more about that radiation fog and then some. Millions facing sub-freezing temperatures as Arctic blast grips U.S. Temperatures hit record lows across the U.S. Record cold remains for millions. These are exactly the kind of headlines that controllers and climate engineers want. Welcome to engineered winter weather and chemical ice nucleation cloud seeding at the core. Freak freezing forever fog. I like all the alliteration that Mr. Dane does. Freak freezing forever fog is another consequence of the same geoengineering operations. Mysterious 400-mile stretch of radiation fog blankets 13 million Americans. What are the conditions like in the rest of the world? So he goes into that in the longer version of the broadcast here, Global Alert News for this week. So yeah, something to check out if you didn't already. But make sure you're on the email list here, totally free email list, sign up. Drop your name in there if you want, your email address, and you'll get the link and the video embedded on the newsletter. So it's right there. But it's available on YouTube, Dane Wigington channel on YouTube, and then here's the Deming, which is something I've mentioned before. It's a video that you can share with friends and family, and let them know about what's happening with the global geoengineering programs. I think it's a very important thing to continue letting people know about, because eyes are opening, that is for sure. All right, the scheduled weather for this week, December 13th through the 17th, well, coming up in a few days, we're back to, yet again, more or less, the split down the middle. You have the eastern half of the U.S. staying cool, western half of the U.S. staying above normal for the most part, and again, not natural. Chemical ice nucleation is used. They use, by manipulating the jet stream, they use moisture from the Gulf and from the North Pole, and they manipulate that moisture by using the chemical ice nucleation process, and they're able to cool areas as vast as entire swaths of the country, like the eastern half of the U.S. Again, one of the most cool regions year after year, every year. And, the rest of the globe is pretty much staying warm, but the eastern half of the U.S. is where the American press is based. And the vast majority of the American population is in the eastern half of the U.S. So that's kind of front and center, one of the main ideas as to why they continue to keep that part of the United States cool, because it's the ongoing lie that they use geoengineering to support. So anyway, that is the scheduled weather coming up for 13th through the 17th of December. And then just to sort of reiterate here, on Climate Reanalyzer, we have, this is starting now really. Again, eastern half of the U.S., pretty cool. And then you can see the slight warm-up heading in as the cool temperatures are starting to subside a little, but then here comes the next blast from up north here. And then that's 4 to 6 days out, and then 7 to 10 days out, it's more of the same, except the cool blast is mostly going to be, the upper eastern half of the U.S. So we'll have some cool temperatures here where I am, but overall, I don't think it's going to be super cold. So anyway, so that's going from days 1 through 3 to days 4 through 6 here, and then days 7 through 10 here. So December 14th is what we're looking at here on this one. So it'll be cooler than normal, but not by a whole lot, as far as what I'm seeing here. On climatereanalyzer.org is where that site is. Climate and Economy, roundup of climate news. Storms in the Southern Ocean are producing more rain, and the consequences could be global. Friday ice update. Arctic sea ice extent is currently the lowest on record. Yeah, and again, they've changed the way they've measured it. They measure any amount of slush as ice pack, any amount of slush. So that's a way that they're able to say, the ice is, it's expanding. And they use chemical ice nucleation processes up there as well. Anyway, there is quite a bit more info here on this site. I was looking to see if anything else jumps out at me. We've got, more flooding, obviously. Historic rains. Temperature increases. Drought. So, more of the same. Lots of flooding, looks like. So, drought and deluge. Back and forth, back and forth. That tends to be what you get with geoengineering. Drought and deluge. Anyway, that's climateandeconomy.com. And then, let's see, I pulled this up just to see if there's any KC3 information, but I never had time to even look that up this week. So, we'll do that next week. And then, Israel 365 News. Christmas markets under siege from Caribbean to Europe's heart. Fear of terrorist attacks is depriving families of the joy traditionally associated with Christmas markets in major European cities. Yeah, that's because they keep, letting the unmanned vehicles, take charge and then run through at 100 miles an hour and drive over people. When, of course, it's not that at all. It's simply a Muslim behind the wheel, and we can't call it what it is. We just have to say it's the vehicle that does it, not a Muslim, not an immigrant, not a illegal, not whatever. Looking to see if there's anything else here on this side. I don't really see anything. Tucker Carlson plans Qatar home purchase while Doha hosts Hamas leadership. So they've been trying to call him Tucker Qatarlson, saying that he's taking money from Qatar, and apparently he's actually buying a Qatar home. So he's gonna show them. I thought that was pretty funny. The war is not over, and there is no peace. No kidding. Anyway, some of the top articles on Israel 365, and then let's look at the X. I didn't pull it up separately, but let's look at the X page here today. I did retweet a few things. Remember, don't pick on older children who still believe in Santa Claus. I know adults who still think VAXXs are safe. Yeah, and effective. That's a good one. Richard Gage, this is architects and engineers guy who's now out on his own. But what happens when a demolition crew detonates explosives at the bottom of one side of a tower? Remember, with World Trade Center 7, it says, why did every floor of the World Trade Center 7, which had office fires, collapse into itself on 9/11? Should demo crews just use fire? So you can see here, this is what happens when just the bottom floors are affected. So the building doesn't exactly come down straight as intended. The bottom floors collapse and it tips over. That's what happens. But this is what happened with World Trade Center 7, but we were told it was just office fires that caused it. So it should have fallen over sideways like that building that we just saw did. Nope, it goes straight down. Yeah. At free fall speed, just like someone dropping a bowling ball off the top floor, it takes about just as long for the bowling ball to get from the top floor to the ground as it does for that entire building to go down. So it was imploded on purpose into its own footprint. I remember hearing that they were going to blow it up, that they were going to knock that building down on that day when it happened. Because I remember thinking, man, that was fast. How did they get the building, how did they get the explosives in the building that fast when everything else that had been going on? I was suspicious of it then. I remember thinking that. But that would be because they did it way ahead of time, and then they pulled it, as was talked about. They pulled it when they were ready to, when they decided that, they had to explode the building because there was so much incriminating evidence inside of it. So they had to get rid of the building. far as I know, nobody was inside the building. It was all, important documents and information that they wanted to get rid of, and no plane hit the building, so they had to implode it. Oh yeah, free Tina Peters. I was going to mention Tina because her health, like we talked about a week or two ago, is not good. This is a retweet, but it's talking about free Tina Peters, urgent update on Tina, dated yesterday. Tina's a strong woman. No one can deny that. However, her health is not good and deteriorating as we speak. Her physical condition continues to decline. Her cough is worsening and she is so weak she cannot walk into the medical line the last few days. She has continued to lose weight and has become very thin. Tina has been drug tested multiple times this week. She was too dehydrated to even pee in the cup for the last drug test. Wow. Her memory is foggy. She has put in requests for medical evaluation with the facility for possible recurrence of lung cancer, mental, etc. She needs a PET scan and a serious evaluation at a hospital. Please pray for Tina. Christmas is approaching and we have yet to see a ruling on her. So yeah, they want her to die in prison. That's where they want it. That's what they want for sure. Tina is a political prisoner incarcerated by a crooked judge in a sham trial to punish her for daring to defy the corrupt officials in Colorado by doing her job and maintaining evidence of fraud in the 2020 election. Tina Peters is a symbol to all other clerks in the state and around the country to think twice before challenging the powers that be. She stood for all Americans and she has been made an example out of. Tina needs your prayers, your voice, and any support you can offer her right now. May God strengthen her and bring her home. TinaPeters.us is where the website is, if you're able to help. So, yeah, and again, Trump should federalize the prison she's in, go in and have her removed, and then hand the prison back over to Colorado once she's out. Will he do that? I don't think so. Will she die in prison? It's very possible. It's not looking good. Yeah, and then let's see. This was a good breakdown here of total proof of the deep state's color revolution blueprint for regime change in the U.S. exposed by top former and prosecutor and talk show host Lionel. You guys may know who Lionel is. Mr. Dane's been on Lionel's show multiple times. He does a really good job. Good breakdown here. This 13-minute report lays out exactly how the globalists are financing the destruction of America from within using our own tax dollars. So lovely, huh? Free speech has not been banned in the UK, and we will arrest anyone who says it has. Yeah. So this was, I don't really put a whole lot of hope in politics, but this guy, I think, he's running a really good campaign in Florida. James Fishback is the guy's name. Says, I'm running to succeed Ron DeSantis as Florida's next Republican governor to make life more affordable for you and your family. I'll stop the H-1B scam, tell Blackstone they can't buy our homes, and cancel AI data centers, and abolish property taxes. So he's saying all the right things. He's running against Byron Donaldson, who is overall a pretty good guy, but I think this guy's running a better campaign, and he may very well win. We'll see. He doesn't have quite as much money, obviously, as a Byron Donaldson does, but it is interesting. We'll see what happens, but Fishback is running a really good campaign, and this video, 3-minute video, is well worth watching. He makes some really good points in it. So, again, we'll see where it goes. All right? Let's see what you guys are saying. I wanted to check the comments here before we get too much further along. It is 11:30 here, getting kind of late. So let's see what you guys are up to. See if we have lots of comments. I wanted to remind people that if you have a question for me, just make sure you use the actual question mark in the post, and I will see it because it kind of flags it for me. Marty's asking, okay, who didn't click the like button? That's funny. Thank you, Marty. I appreciate that. Yeah, the videos now, I used to take the videos down off of YouTube immediately after I finished the live stream. Now I'm leaving them up because I'm not saying anything controversial anymore. Now, I'm just joking. But the VAXXs were the main reason, and supposedly they're not banning people for that anymore, which is the reason that I got my Diamond Disc channel back on YouTube. Nonetheless, I've still been trying to mask that word by saying VAXX instead of the real word, and using those sorts of filters. But I haven't really talked about too much with regard to those and what they're causing, i.e. deaths. And, I've been able to leave the videos up. So, yeah, giving the videos a like is certainly helpful at this point. So if you don't mind, if it doesn't cost you anything, go ahead and click the like button. If it costs money, though, don't worry about it. Guess we all need to be driving Volvos, Emily said at 11:11. So she must be right, because it's posted right at 11:11. Of course, that's my time, but yes, thank you guys, and God bless you as well. Hope you guys have a great week this week. Excellent presentation, Betty says. Have a wonderful week. So thank you, Miss Betty, for being here, and to Matt, and to everyone else. Susan, who else is here in chat? Marty, of course, and looking to see if I missed anyone. I guess that was the main folks here. I think I saw Davey earlier, so hello to Davey. Yeah, he was here. And let me double check the Rumble chat. And we also have a chat running on the Diamond Disc channel too, but apparently no one wants to use it because there's just a few posts in there, which that's fine. But that actually does show up on my screen here. The Diamond Disc chat does, and the normal Take It to the Lord in Prayer End Times Dates channel chat shows up on here too. So anyways, yes, thank you guys for being here tonight. And again, keep the Verbas in prayer, and hope that things help. The people can help financially, and just be praying for them as well. Wow, what a nightmare that Miss Crystal's gone. But again, she is in glory for sure. No question there. And then let's see here. Let's double check and make sure I didn't miss anything. I've got my Substack, which I know you guys know all about this, but we'll drop it in anyways and stay on here for just a couple more minutes. We have the Substack, diamonddisc.substack.com. Can drop your email address in, and or you can choose to help me financially through this same site. Or if you don't want to do that, that's fine. You can just subscribe to the email. And then once you do, you will see all of the different articles here. The one front and center is, of course, the most recent one. This one was just mentioning the broadcast tonight. And then the two most recent ones after that look like they're the same thing, but they're actually not. They're from the same show, but one of them is the links to all of last week's articles that I talked about. And then the other one is primarily just a link to the audio podcast version of last week's show. I usually put that out first because I have the show edited first and posted on all the various platforms, and then I send all the links out after that. So that's why it looks like there's two of the same thing, but technically it's not. They are different posts. And if you scroll down a little bit here, you'll see all of my links to the various other platforms like Subscribestar. And then the Diamond Report is also on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. If you happen to be on either one of those and want just an audio version of the show, those are audio only. And then I do repost it to Twitter, X, and I do, of course, re-upload the final video on YouTube, the two YouTube channels as well. And also Rumble, BitChute, Brighteon, and those. So all those links are here. Probably a couple I should update here and there. But there's, don't forget, if you happen to be on Telegram, please give those pages a follow. The Diamond Report and End Times Dates on Telegram. And those links are on here as well. I post something every week to my Parler and my Getter and Brighteon Social. Brighteon.io I don't post to every week because that site comes and goes. I don't know why. Just a weird one. MeWe is good. CloutHub, I think, is been revamped. I don't really post on there anymore. And then Gab and Minds. So those bottom ones here, except for CloudHub, I think I'm pretty much on there every week, more or less. So yes, please follow along. Of course, on Facebook as well. I do keep that going. And YouTube and so forth and so on. So that is the Diamond Report link and set up there. And then Subscribestar is the other mechanism. If you happen to want to subscribe, help me out. We're up to 8 total subscribers on here. Anywhere from $5 up per month. If you want to help what I'm doing, help me pay the bills. Always having to buy something and pay for something. So it helps for that to not 100% be out of pocket. Although, you know, I've been funding this show myself, and then brought people on little by little. People have decided to chip in and help, so that's been a big plus. So thank you guys for helping in that way. And then we have the YouTube channels, BitChute, Rumble, Brighteon, and then Band. I'll bring that link up as well. We won't bother with the other ones. You guys know the routine. But this is the Band group, band.us, and then you can just do a search for the Diamond Report, or you can just do band.us and then put the @ symbol, the Diamond Report. So band.us/@ the Diamond Report. That will also get you here. You'll see the logo. So yeah, we're a small group, but you know, I know the Verbas were in there posting things as well, and that was where I first put the link tonight for their GoFundMe. So I was able to post that in there earlier today. So anyways, thank you guys. I hope you guys are blessed this week in some way, maybe some small way, maybe some huge way. I don't know. But I do pray that you guys have a good week this week. I will be doing some traveling. I'm trying to pull the calendar up here. My computer is running a little slow here, so I'm waiting on that. I will be doing some traveling this week, although I don't think it will affect the show next week. If it does, I will let you guys know. But I'm hoping it won't. My son is graduating from college this coming week. So that is a kind of a fun family time that we'll be doing a get-together. We'll be heading to Knoxville. So yeah, we have got that trip coming up. And then I should be back in time, though, for all of the live stream stuff next week. If not, I will certainly let you guys know, and we'll delay the show maybe a day or something if we have to, but hoping we'll be back in time. So stay tuned on that. I'll send out a bulletin on the Substack if something changes, but hopefully it will not. So we'll see what happens. We'll plan on the next broadcast being on the 14th. So 9 p.m. Central start time on December 14th. We are closing in on Christmas. Hope you guys have got your Christmas shopping done, if you do such things. And if not, then that's totally fine as well. You just celebrate it how you see fit. That's the way I see it. And keep Jesus front and center in your life, because that's what really matters. And the holiday season, if you're a believer, it's really about Him. You know, we know it's not actually His birthday, but it doesn't matter. We're celebrating His life and His coming here and sacrificing all for us. So God bless you guys, and stay tuned for this next video. I think it'll be a good one for you guys to check out. And I'll be watching it myself for the first time. I don't think I've seen it. So it's called Report FDR's Pearl Harbor Stand Down Exposed. So yeah, being how it's Pearl Harbor Day, I figured we'd end the show with this, and we will do it again next week. Love you guys. Blessings to you all, and we'll see you then.
On December 7th, 1941, the Imperial Japanese Navy Air Service struck Pearl Harbor on the island of Oahu in the then U.S. territory of Hawaii, where over 3,000 Americans were killed and wounded, and the United States was obliged to enter the theater of World War II, declaring war against Japan, Germany, and Italy in the same week. But was this attack on the U.S. an accident? A failure of American intelligence? A brilliant military military coup? At first, a panel created by FDR concluded that we had no advanced warning and should blame only local commanders for the lack of preparedness. However, according to author Robert S. Stinnett in his book Day of Deceit, The Truth About FDR and Pearl Harbor, the attack was the result of a carefully orchestrated design, initiated at the highest levels of the U.S. government, to motivate Americans to support another massive foreign war. He uses over 200,000 documents and interviews obtained through the Freedom of Information Act to lay out how under Franklin Delano Roosevelt's leadership, the heads of the United States military would first provoke, then stand down and allow an attack to take place, absorbing the first strike from Japan, an overt act of war. This justified the United States' entrance into World War II against the Axis powers to serve British interests in Europe and around the world. On October 7, 1940, Lieutenant Commander Arthur H. McCullum sent a memo to two of Roosevelt's most trusted military advisors, which laid out 8 steps that he predicted would precipitate a Japanese attack on the United States. These 8 steps included using British and Dutch bases in the Pacific, aiding the Chinese government's fight with Japan, sending a division of long-range heavy cruisers and submarines into or adjacent to territorial waters of Japan, keeping the main strength of the U.S. fleet in the Hawaiian Islands, and completely embargoing all trade with Japan, just as the British Empire had already done. The day after this memo was sent to FDR's advisors, the State Department told Americans to evacuate Far East countries as quickly as possible in preparation for conflict, and Roosevelt ordered the U.S. fleet to stay in Hawaiian waters, which had already been there for an annual training exercise. Admiral James O. Richardson objected to keeping the fleet in Hawaii, citing a lack of training facilities, ammunition, fuel, and support craft. Quote, "There was no logical reason for me to make such a request," but he reluctantly obeyed the orders from Roosevelt and his military chiefs. FDR personally took charge of sending heavy cruisers near Japan's territorial waters, saying, quote, "I just want them to keep popping up here and there and keep the Japs guessing. I don't mind losing 1 or 2 cruisers, but do not take a chance on losing 5 or 6. The Pacific Fleet commander objected to this strategy, retorting, quote, "It is ill-advised and will result in war if we make this move." However, this is exactly what FDR wanted to do. Admiral Richardson quotes Roosevelt as saying, quote, "Sooner or later the Japanese would commit an overt act against the United States, and the nation would be willing to enter the war." During his campaign for the new term of his presidency, FDR promised voters, quote, "Your boys are not going to be sent into any foreign wars." But according to his biographer, he told members of his staff, quote, "Of course we'll fight if we're attacked. If someone attacks us, then it isn't a foreign war, is it?" Soon, Lieutenant Commander McCullum's 8-point action memo would make the president's words into a reality. Additionally, despite an embargo on trade with Japan, the White House allowed Japan to obtain petroleum supplies sufficient to maintain its ability to make war. Between 1940 and 1941, a period when American oil supplies were supposedly under embargo, over 9 million barrels of gasoline were licensed for export to Japan, with 2 million more pending, while the Japanese tankers transporting the oil were under electronic surveillance by the Navy, including their radio codes. Conventional history states that these codes were not solved until the spring of 1942, but new information reveals that a team of Army and Navy cryptographers solved the 2 principal Japanese government radio code systems in the early fall of 1940, around the same time that McCullum's memo reached the Oval Office. They had solved all 4 of the principal radio codes for Japanese warships by the fall of 1941, the same 4 radio codes that Admiral Yamamoto, Commander-in-Chief of the Imperial Japanese Navy, used to transmit his war orders up until the attack. Between November 20th and December 6th, Yamamoto and his commanders clearly revealed 2 forces were aimed at Hawaii, so the U.S. undoubtedly deciphered Japanese communications that indicated their plan to attack Pearl Harbor. However, the timing of this successful decoding was hidden, and naval Central Intelligence records, even long after the war. Some of these encrypted messages included communications from a Japanese spy, which the FBI deemed the outside man, named Tadashi Morimura, who was posing as the chancellor in the Japanese consulate in Hawaii. The FBI and White House knew Morimura and his Japanese spy team were operating in Hawaii from March of 1941 until the attack, even intercepting and decoding his bomb plot grid details on August 21st, which gave the lay of the land for Pearl Harbor and advised for the attack. After providing a clear map of the target and intel on U.S. naval activities for almost the entire year of 1941, the day before the attack, Morimura sent a message to Tokyo stating, quote, "Even though they have actually made preparations, there are limits to the balloon defense of Pearl Harbor. I imagine that in all probability there is considerable opportunity left to take advantage for a surprise attack against these places." This message was decoded moments after being sent, but the warning was withheld. Almost everything about the official Pearl Harbor narrative is a lie, including the fact that the Japanese fleet did not maintain radio silence as it approached Hawaii, a fabrication used to convince the world that we didn't see it coming, even that day. The truth is, the US military had been monitoring the movements and communications of Japanese ships for almost a year as they returned to their homelands from abroad, clearly planning something big in the Pacific. Japan's initial planning for the attack began in the fall of 1940. Naval Minister Admiral Koshiro Oikawa and Admiral Yamamoto agreed that a surprise air raid on Pearl Harbor should start Japan's military offense against America. At the U.S. Embassy in Tokyo, the attack plan was leaked from Japanese naval officers to U.S. Secretary Max Bishop through a Peruvian minister to Japan. On January 27, 1941, Bishop sent the U.S. Secretary of State a message reading, quote, "My Peruvian colleague told a member of my staff that he had heard from many sources, including a Japanese source, that the Japanese military forces planned in the event of trouble with the United States to attempt a surprise attack on Pearl Harbor, using all of their military facilities." When Lieutenant Commander Arthur McCullum heard about this message, he advised FDR to dismiss the warning, which he did. In the end, on December 7th, the attack on Pearl Harbor took place. Millions of Americans who wanted nothing to do with foreign wars, in shock, ran to their recruiting offices to join the various armed services. In that week, FDR got exactly what he wanted from provoking Japan: America at war to protect British interests around the world. As Roosevelt said in his speech the following day, it truly was a day of infamy, but it was also a day of deceit. This is Brian Wilson with Infowars.com.